welcome back to Mornings with the Mandalorian, the show where we...
Takeover, Spencer. Boba's taken over. We should be used to this by now. It's
Yeah,
Boba Takeover.
you're
We're
right.
talking about the Book of Boba Fett.
Yes. As he said, we are talking about the Book of Boba Fett this week. I'm your host, Spencer Chandler, here with my co-host, as always, Christian Miller, who is so generous and letting me know that I am trying to do the intro for the wrong show once again. 3 weeks in a row, man. One day I'll get it right. I'm just excited for the Mandalorian to be back, but we're here to talk about this.
When Mornings with the Mandalorian will return. So in the meantime, we just have this discussion about a book that's not a book.
Yeah, and I have to practice.
The first time we discuss a book, like intentionally make a show about a book, it's not actually a book.
Yeah. Yeah.
That being said, a little bit of a side announcement having to do with our Star Wars in our daily lives. Spencer, you're reading the Ahsoka novel.
I am, yes. By E.K. Johnson. It takes place after the events of the Siege of Mandalore and her, along with Rex and the rest of the 501st helping drive Maul out of Mandalore, and it's her trying to live kind of like on her own in this new Imperial universe, and it's really good so far. I'm only a couple chapters in, just because moving back into school and everything, haven't had a whole lot of time to just kind of sit and read. But it's really good so far, and it's very like, it definitely feels like the same character from Clone Wars has just come over and read this book. Like she doesn't change the character basically at all. It's like the same mannerisms. It's great. I love it. I cannot wait to finish it, and we may do it. I know the book is like years old at this point, but it might, because of how much we both love Ahsoka, we might do an episode about it, possibly.
Yeah, I read it a few years ago. In the space between Last Jedi and Rise of Skywalker, that's the highest amount of like Star Wars books I probably read. And yeah, I didn't think it was through and through like a great Star Wars book, but there were some cool concepts in there that I enjoyed that I incorporate into my little headcanons about Star Wars that like if I think about it, I'm like, oh, that's from that Ahsoka book. But also, side note, it's written by E.K. Johnson, who has a pull quote on this book, Iron Widow, which I just finished. I got it like 3 months ago. I didn't finish it until like 2 nights ago.
Nice. Yeah, see, so that's the difference between you and me. I don't read a whole lot, so this is actually the first Star Wars book I've ever read.
Really? Not even when you were younger?
Okay, yeah, I guess I read the old, like, you remember they made the books about the movies? Those ones? Yeah, they made like the novelizations of them. I think I've read those.
Have you read every one of them, like the Revenge of the Sith one?
No, I've read the OT ones.
Okay. Because I
Yeah.
hear the Revenge of the Sith one is like legitimately just a good book on its own.
Mm-hmm.
I haven't.
No, I think I read the OT ones when I remember they were in my school library when I was in elementary school. I remember checking out at least 2 of them. Whether I actually read them or finished them or not, I cannot tell you. Mostly because they're the same story as the movie, so I wouldn't really know any different whether I'd read it or not. But yeah, this will be like the first this is the first like canon Star Wars book that I've sat down and read. So
Yeah. One time, again, between Last Jedi and Rise of Skywalker, I was a Star Wars hipster, and I bought Splinter of the Mind's Eye, which is the sequel to A New Hope when they didn't know if there was going to be a sequel. So it was just a book sequel that was not written by George Lucas. And I bought it for like maybe $1 or $2.
nice.
After walking in this like this cheap bookstore for like 30-40 minutes, and I decided to get that one. Just after waiting that long, I just gave a few quarters to the person. I was like, "Yeah, I'm gonna get this," and I didn't get past like the first few chapters.
Dude, I went to Barnes and Noble and Ahsoka was literally $10. It was on sale, and I was like, bet. Like, I was like, this is just like a sign. And then 2 weeks later, I got Thrawn Ascendancy for Christmas. So I'm very excited to read the new Thrawn series too, because it just got finished up. Um, I think a month ago. The third installment came out, so I'm excited to go read that series too. But more importantly, now that I'm back in my dorm room, I've been reunited with my favorite Funko Pop, my C-3PO Funko Pop right here. So I can look at him when I get sad now, I guess. So that's cool. That's all the Star
Nice
Wars
link of
stuff I have.
icons.
Yeah. It is okay for anybody who's like not like watching on YouTube or whatever. It is the red-eyed C-3PO from The Rise of Skywalker. Um, it's also a reminder that that whole movie is not bad. I use it as a reminder that there are good scenes in that movie because I liked that scene personally.
Yeah,
So
I knew you liked that scene. I just never heard you phrase it that way. I never heard you say the movie was not bad.
it's not all bad. The movie is
Okay.
bad. The movie is bad. The movie is very bad. That scene is not bad. So it's a reminder that not every part of the movie is bad, just the movie as a whole and most of the movie.
Yeah, for sure.
So so yeah, it's always nice to remember that there are good parts to that movie. Like there are some good character scenes between a couple of like as much as people hate it. Oh no, that's Last Jedi. Never mind. I was gonna say the whole stuff about Finn and Rose. That's great, but I forgot they did away with her character in Rise of Skywalker, and that was in Last Jedi.
Yeah, I know.
Well,
I had blocked the scene out of my mind when Finn just like pats her on the shoulder, and like that's the writers just dismissing her
I
character. I had
forgot about
forgotten
that.
that
Oh, that's
until I
so
did it
sad.
now.
That's so
Um,
sad.
okay, we're about an hour into this episode. Let's start talking about
Yeah,
Boba
let's
Fett.
actually talk about Book of Boba Fett. This is episode 2. It was called, let me pull it, The Tribes of Tatooine. Um, and so I think if you listen to our review episode or our first episode of the season, one thing that I said is I didn't want a lot of backstory because I didn't care. And if you've been watching Book of Boba Fett, which why wouldn't you be if you're listening to this? Basically, this whole episode was about 5 minutes of like what's happening current day, I guess, and pretty much 40 minutes of like flashback Tuscan stuff, which after watching the second episode and looking at the first episode and the second episode in context with each other, I like it. I'm not mad about it.
Yeah, and you could make an argument that when they put so much when they center it in this episode as like that's the predominant thing you're seeing, in a way
Yeah,
it's not backstory, in a way that's the
exactly.
story, and then
Exactly.
the first scene is a flash forward.
I think we all in the first episode expected the what's happening now to be like the post Jabba to be or post Bib Fortuna we'll say. We'll call it
Post Mando
ABF.
season 2.
ABF after Bib Fortuna. Um we're I guess we can consider ABF. We thought that was gonna be the main storyline and then we were gonna flash back a couple of times an episode and get a lot of that. But what I think is really happening is I think that um BBF before Bib Fortuna is actually going to be the main storyline, and we're gonna get like some stuff about like what he's doing now. Um, which I also wouldn't be mad at because I'm really starting to like this Tuscan stuff, and like just seeing Boba Fett live with the Tuscans, I'm loving it, especially in this episode.
I think it's gonna be somewhere in the middle. I think
Hmm.
probably the next episode will go back into the present ABF,
Yeah,
in the hang of that. Um, and then like maybe 4 will go back to BBF, and then like 4 and 6 or 5 and 6 will be mostly the criminal underworld stuff.
yeah,
Um, but yeah, it's definitely it flipped back and forth so much in the first episode that like it felt like it kept interrupting and like not really getting to a lot of interesting stuff, and just like kind of putting a lot of bland flashbacks, flash forwards next to each
hmm
other, and it seemed like there was not a lot of focus in the first episode. But with this episode, it definitely feels like they were focusing on one. They were choosing one to place emphasis on, and sort of just having the framing of the criminal underworld stuff.
Yeah.
But there is pretty there's substantial amount of that stuff in this episode though.
Yeah, especially the end. There's a lot of there's a really good scene at the end, but there's also like other stuff throughout the episode where he kind of is flashing in and out.
But wait, I'm trying to remember. It's the first part is just um going to see the mayor,
Mm-hmm.
and then the Jabba or the Huts interrupt. That's all the first part, right? Or is the Hut interruption at the end?
I will look it up while we talk about it, but
It's
we
been a
should
few days since we've seen this.
yes, we should also probably start off with a synopsis. We have totally skipped over that whole part.
Well, yeah, we got to do that, especially since we're having trouble remembering the order
Yeah.
of
So what I'm
things.
gonna do is I'm gonna synopsis while I scroll through the episode because that is the best way to do a synopsis. And there's probably people. Okay, if you're gonna get mad at me for like having to look at the episode to do a synopsis, like it's really difficult when it keeps flashing back over and over and over again. Okay, it's not the easiest thing in the world to do. So
It doesn't. Doesn't it? From my memory, it's the entire second half, or
it might be. I can't remember if it's the first
the
half or the
last
second
30
half
minutes
though.
are entirely in the past. I'm sure. I'm pretty sure.
Yeah, I can't remember if it's the first thing, but we're gonna figure it out right now. Episode 2. All right. So according to Disney Plus, which it should be a pretty reputable source for this kind of thing, that's a good one. So we start off with the Disney Plus logo, and then sorry,
Okay.
okay, the internet's really bad right now, and so we're doing some stuff. Yeah, so we start out in ABF. All right, so this is when they're interrogating the assassin. He finally tells them that the mayor sent them. Uh, he gets put in the Rancor pit, but there's no Rancor because, as we know, the Luke killed the Rancor. And so then they go visit the mayor. That's when the mayor does the whole, watch out for what you're doing, whatever. I didn't do that, all this fun stuff. We also get a really funny scene. Um, we can talk about it in a minute, but of him trying to check in, like, do you have an appointment with the mayor? I thought that was funny. Um, but then after he leaves the mayor, he goes back to the club, remember, to talk to the woman who's running the club. But as he's walking out, we get the Huts. We get the twins, as they're called in the episode. They come around and they have one of my favorite characters that I've ever seen. He's very cool looking. His name is Black Chrysanthemum. Never said, but he's a black Wookiee. So he's not this. His fur is black instead of brown, which first off, it just looks really cool. But he is, from what I can see, is a bounty hunter. And if you want to know who he's played by, research time. He's played by Carrie Jones, who has done a lot with like, I think he's played the Predator once and does a lot of Walking Dead stuff. Anyway, they basically tell him that this is their territory. He needs to back off. And Boba's like, no, this is my territory now. Jabba's dead. I killed Bib Fortuna. Blah, 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 blah. So after that, nobody gets hurt. To which we then flash back to, well, first off, he goes back and gets in his cool little chamber or whatever, his healing chamber. And we get a bunch of flashback, which basically, to keep it short and sweet, the Tuscans have to fight the Pike Syndicate, who is coming through their territory. So Boba trains them on speeder bikes and all this good stuff, and they get to take over this train of the Pike Syndicate. And then he gets basically um, indicted in something. He gets like into their like ranks, I guess, at the end of the episode in ways that we will discuss later in the episode.
Honorary Tuscan.
Yes, honorary Tuscan, Boba Fett.
Yeah. So yeah, my memory was
You were correct.
yeah.
I was wrong. I apologize.
You were wrong. Black Chrysanthemum, I believe his designation is like like a mercenary, like an assassin for
Mm-hmm.
hire. I
Yes.
remember hearing about him because he was in the first Vader comic run.
Yeah, it
But
says he's an
he,
ex-gladiator turned mercenary.
yeah, and I heard a lot of good things about that Vader comic. I just didn't. I don't know. I didn't ever like want to like checking it out. It felt like one of those things that they were obligated to do.
Mm-hmm.
Like, oh, we have Marvel Publishing now for Star Wars comics. We just have to do Vader stories because that'll sell.
Yeah.
So I was never compelled to do that. But yeah, he was. It's
He looks
apparently
cool.
he's fought with Boba Fett before, like on his side, and I believe they also fought each other. Um,
So
and
they know each
but
other.
yes, but there was no real sign of that in this episode.
Is that canon or is that pre-Disney?
It's yeah, it was under the Marvel label. So
Oh, okay. Interesting. So we'll see if that gets brought up in future episodes. But yeah, so that's the whole thing right now. Boba's trying to figure out who's trying to kill him. They say it's the mayor, but the mayor denies it. But now the Hutts are back in town, so who knows what happens next? I would rather talk about some Boba Fett learning some Tusken. I would, because that whole flashback scene was just like, and I know I had mentioned it multiple times. We hear about crime syndicates. I was wondering if the Pikes were going to be brought in, because they're like the main spice smugglers, in the galaxy, and we're debating, but they have officially come in this episode. Um, and I think they look cool. They look like they're a mix of the ones near who are like talking look to be mostly practical. So for those of you who really like practical effects like me, I think they look pretty cool. Along with the Wookiee, very practical, looks great, looks awesome. Um, okay, I'll just get this off my chest. People are complaining that the Hutts look stupid because they're CG, and people are just wanting it to go back to the way that Jabba looked in A New Hope. Um, and well, I guess not New Hope, but in the OT. I like the way Jabba looks, but I don't think these look bad.
if they went back to that original A New Hope look from the deleted scene with just the guy in fur coats, that would be the boldest thing ever. If they were just like retconning the whole thing, and like Huts are just big, big, burly guys now.
Yeah,
That would be
well,
funny.
but I don't know. They look. I think the Hutts in this episode look better than Jabba did in like the Phantom Menace,
Uh,
and I think
I don't
they
know.
look better. I also think they look better than Jabba in the remastered, the O2 remastered re-release.
I don't really have a good vocabulary for like critiquing special effects.
Is whether it looks
Um,
real or not really. I mean, nothing's gonna look more real than having a legit Jabba puppet on,
yeah,
on set, but I don't think these look bad. But people are just crapping on it online, dude. People are like, "This is the worst. Can we just get a puppet back? They should never use CGI for the Hutts." Like, one Jabba puppet is hard enough, much less when you have two of them.
I think they did something good. If my main takeaway was like the character, like the acting of the slugs themselves, the fact that it's like they're spooning and they're
Yeah,
twins, like the weirdness of that overtakes
yeah,
my suspicion of like, oh, there's a bunch of people lifting them up, but are there's not actually anything on the platform. Like I had that for a second where I was like, they're pretending to hold something heavy, but mostly I was thinking about why are they sitting like that if they're brother and sister?
yeah. That's
They're
honestly that was me too.
so like if I'm thinking more about the performance and more about who these new hot characters are and how what their
Hmm.
angle of weirdness is, then I
Uh,
think it's
pretty,
phenomenal.
pretty weird. Yeah, no, I was wondering that too. Why are they sitting like this if they're brother and sister? It doesn't look right. Um,
And they're using like one of them is using a rat or something as like a head scratcher at some point,
yeah,
just playing with his food.
yeah. I don't know how I feel about the whole thing because like the male is also like leaning over on her like really seductively, like, and I'm like,
Yeah.
no, that's so weird. Please stop.
But if you're thinking about that more than the technology, then the technology is convincing enough, I think.
Yeah, yeah, I agree. Um, but anyway, we can stop talking about that and we can go to some flashback stuff. Um, we have we start off with Boba Fett going, and this is right when he has basically just murdered a bunch of people in a bar. You remember end of the last episode? Are you gonna say the fun fact
I
about
can, but what are you saying about the last episode?
in the at the end of the last episode, right, is when he kills all the people in the bar, remember? And he steals their motorbikes.
No, that was this episode.
Is it the beginning of this episode?
When he gets a train of speeders,
Yeah.
he hooks them all together. That's this episode.
No, I thought it was the end of the last episode. Anyway, you can see how much these run together for me. But anyway, I'll let you take it over because you probably know the fun fact better than I do. You probably know their names.
Yeah. So, and this is I didn't I had to like
I didn't know this either. I literally
explain it
saw it
to you
online.
because like the designs are so like unimaginative
Yeah.
that like they don't stand out as like
You
a
should know who
Star
this
Wars
is.
character you miss.
Yeah.
Yeah, exactly. I did feel the scene was weird though, but like yeah, the patrons in the train bar are Luke's friends from his childhood, and there was a deleted scene in A New Hope where he actually goes to Tashi Station, and there's a girl named Kami, and I forget the guy's name, but they're
But
like
it's
the
also
cooler.
Biggs is there too. He's in that scene.
Yeah, Bix was in that scene. But yeah, Kami and what's his name are like the cooler. They're a couple, and they're making fun of Luke, and they're calling him Wormy.
Yeah.
And the scene was cut because it's just like Luke getting bullied, and then stepping outside of Tashi Station and using his binoculars to look at an Imperial shuttle, and then Biggs talking about the Academy.
Yeah.
That's all the scene was. And then these people show up in the train. I forget what they talk about, if they say anything. I think they don't have many lines except for just like looking at each other and like judging the mercenaries in the train.
Yeah.
My first thought was not like that's someone I recognize from Tatooine. My first thought was like they just look really dismissive of these people.
Well,
Like
I also could tell the way they were framing this scene. I was like, these are people that I'm supposed to know, or that like I'm gonna have to look up who
yeah,
they are later because the way they were spending way too much time focusing on these two random people in a bar, and I was like, okay, yeah, these are people that I need to look up who they are because we've seen them in some capacity before. And at first I thought they were like maybe friends of Anakin's. It was like maybe one of like the guy was maybe like one of the little boys that Anakin was with, but you know,
yeah,
whatever. But yeah, that's such like a weird thing for them to bring back.
yeah. Because like we had not yet seen what those mercenaries were doing. What species were they, by the way? Were they the dog faces
Uh,
from the
they're the one
sanctuary?
they're the ones that have the spiky bits all over their heads and they kind of look like a rock. I can't remember the name of the species.
That's not narrowing it down.
I can look it up though.
But they weren't initially being jerks. They seemed to just be having fun at a bar, and then it cuts to these characters we're supposed to recognize, and it's just like, like those two characters within the scene are like, oh my gosh, these people are annoying. They're awful. I'm afraid. My first thought was like, this seems like just a very annoyed, like prejudiced human characters, and then it's like, oh wait, the mercenaries are like taking their stuff or
Yeah.
beating them up or something like that.
Yeah.
And then okay, so Boba Fett comes in, he beats all of them up, and then we never see those travelers again.
Yeah. Never seen him again.
We don't know why they're on the train. We don't know what it has to do with the Pike Syndicate. Because later the Pike Syndicate shows up and we're like, oh, so that's who's running the train. But it isn't. There's no connecting thread to the earlier scene with Boba taking over. Um, much like this podcast show, Boba Take Over.
Yes,
Um,
it is.
so that's one of the most bland Tatooine Easter eggs they could have possibly done.
Yeah, they could have done any other. Although, like we say, we don't need them. We don't need all the connections to have a compelling story. But you know, they're gonna be in there, so might as well. But so then once he's back, he decides that they're gonna take over the train that keeps gunning down Tuskens. And I don't think we know at this point that it's the Pikes, but I think you figure that out later. Um, but basically he starts trying to train them in riding a speeder. And that's just a really fun scene, trying to see Tusken Raiders trying to ride, like, or just anyone who's never ridden, because that's probably how anyone who's never ridden a speeder before is probably going to be. It's just really funny because we've always, in our experience with Star Wars, is so weird, but we've only ever seen people who are like good at it, really. Like, we've never seen anyone like drive a speeder who just like sucks. Like, that's just kind of how it is. So it's kind of funny to see people trying to learn how to drive speeders, but also when you don't speak the same language, that's the other part.
There was the Ewok in Return of the Jedi who
Oh, that's right. Yeah, you're right.
kamikazes into a tree.
Oh no. I forgot about that. But like also trying to teach them when they don't speak basic and you don't speak Tusken fully yet.
Yeah.
Like that was cool. But by the end of
So
it,
that's where we get like a bantha quote, and
yeah,
people apparently got mad that they saw Boba Fett smiling and enjoying himself, which is one of just the weirdest
that's so
criticisms you could ever
stupid.
have.
That's so dumb.
Like,
Whatever.
he's got a tragic story enough, and you don't want him to have any enjoyment in what he's
God.
doing.
No, but I think it's really cool that by the end of the episode, he has basically taught himself Tusken, or like taught himself the Tusken Sign Language. Um, that's just, I mean, I don't know how Mando learned it, but knowing him, he probably like went to someone who spoke Basic and Tusken and just learned it from them. But
Well, yeah, because yeah, Dan says it himself that he's got a lot of experience on Tatooine.
mhm,
He probably was employed by the Hutts a decent amount.
yeah, I wouldn't doubt it. But do you think? I mean, do you think we'll see Mando in this show?
Probably at the end. I don't know.
I
I
think
don't
I
know enough
want
about
I
it.
think I want to see Mando. Like I just want to see Mando on screen again, but not in this show. You know what I'm saying? Like if you're gonna do Boba Fett, don't make it to where like you watch it because Mando's in it. Like make it actually Boba Fett's story. If you're gonna go and do a Boba Fett solo story, just go full out. Don't try to like make it like we've already done the crossover. You know what I'm saying? We already did the Boba Fett Mando crossover. We don't need it again. But you know what we say? Whenever we say we don't need things, that's probably what we're gonna get.
Yeah. Um. Another thing, checking in with our expectations of the show. It seems that they're really not trying to emphasize the Fennec aspect of the show.
Yeah,
Um.
I
Which
agree.
like I hope it comes into more prominence, but also I do like the Tuscan backstory, and I like that they're reframing the Tuscan Raiders. Something we because we didn't really like the story of episode one, we didn't have much to say about it, but know that we're like super enjoying this on a representation level of that like seeing this side of this part of Tatooine. I think is still necessary, even if
Mhm.
it's retreading some of archetypes like Boba Fett that we didn't necessarily want. Um, I'm interested in seeing how they balance that out with Fennec, because Fennec I think could also be underutilized.
Are the Tuscans still being played by majority Native Americans in this show?
The only
Because I know
casting
the only one that I know of is the one with that looks like it has dreads, and that's played by um I
it's
forget
just
her name.
it's just cloth.
Yes,
But yeah, that's the only casting I've seen, and I think I'm pretty sure that's a white woman.
it's Joanna Bennett.
Um,
That's the only one I've seen. Oh, and there's another one. Wesley Kimmel is the young child that's always with Boba.
yeah.
The child Tuscan. Yeah. Oh, it is. I do not think that it is Jimmy Kimmel's son. Oh, it's Jimmy Kimmel's nephew. There you go. If you needed to know. His last name is Kimmel. I was intrigued, okay?
I had a science teacher whose sister works on the Kimmel Show.
Interesting. But anyway, yeah, I know last episode we were talking about how we kind of, I hope that Mando can kind of, or not Mando, sorry, Boba can kind of like be the one to make Fennec have a better outlook on people or just life in general, like not to be super cynical and like I'm just gonna kill them kind of thing. Um, because it seems like he's being more patient than usual. But it doesn't seem like they're really addressing that at all, as you said. So I'm hoping that we get more of it.
I think it's very strange because like Ming-Na Wen is so capable of
Mm-hmm.
carrying this character. She was introduced in season one, and then like because of her conversations with Dave Filoni and Jon Favreau, she like got to be like they decided to resurrect her basically.
Yeah.
Um, and it's just she keeps popping up, but I feel like they're still not doing her very much justice because she shows up in Bad Batch and they change nothing about her design and do nothing to alter any of her characteristics, even though it takes place like 20, 30 years before.
Yeah.
And then she shows up here and she seems to just be a very bland foil to Boba and sort of having some discussions, having some arguments with him, but like not really being two equals like butting heads constantly and it
Mm-hmm.
being about their conflict. It just sort of sets up it's like little lines that'll set up Boba Fett to be like, no, I deal with respect.
See, and I'm gonna make a way too early prediction because of how certain Star Wars things have gone in the past. I'm gonna guess that she is only here so that once everything is settled down and Boba's handled everything, she tries to kill him and take over. But yeah, based on what we know about like her character as a whole, um, I wouldn't doubt that like okay, so first off, she's willing to kill anybody just because like they minorly inconvenience her, right? Like they like try to uh someone like doesn't give Boba a tribute. She's like, you want me to kill him? I mean, I'll do it because he didn't give you money or whatever. So she's also like, you can tell if Boba sends her out to do his work, he obviously thinks that she is stronger than him. We also see that he is losing some fights. Like he lost that fight in the first episode, had to be taken back to his healing chamber. So why would someone who is stronger than Boba be working for Boba when he has no like he technically has zero authority on this planet right now. The whole point is he's fighting to get authority. So why would she be working for this guy when she could easily take him out? And I think it's because he has a little bit of respect already because he's worked with the Hutts before. People know his reputation more on this planet, so he can more easily take over, and then she can try to take his spot. And I think that would also explain why we're not getting a whole lot of stuff from her right now, is because if you were planning on taking over once he's in power, you would kind of just sit back, do what you're told, you know, pretend like you're being compliant and then all of a sudden just come out of nowhere. And I think that will be a big twist, maybe.
And I don't like it. I don't think it should be a surprise. I don't It doesn't need to be a rug pulled out from under us because it's gonna be like this big event, or big like story point, but it's not. Hold on, got a hair in my mouth. Um, we haven't they haven't been cutting away to her reactions much, or like we're not getting a sense of her perspective, which I feel like is like it's just not written in very much. Like she's been
Yeah.
around as an adult bounty hunter since roughly the time Boba was a teenager starting out as a bounty hunter, but probably before that.
Yeah, I didn't ever realize how much older she is than Boba because in Bad Batch he'd be approximately the same age as Omega,
A little bit
probably.
older.
Maybe yeah, maybe a little bit older than Omega.
He would be
And
like 16.
yeah, and she's like probably in her late 20s. Like
So like
that's
what
crazy.
is her like you could easily do like this sort of weird metaphor about like oh, it's the new kid on the block. It's like it'd be like I don't know, like a first one that comes to mind, Chris Stapleton. He's a music artist who has been in the business for like two decades almost. He got famous at a later age, and then like him reacting to like a
Yeah.
young like Billie Eilish who gets famous at like 17.
Mhm.
They're not in competing genres at all. But what I'm saying is that like Boba Fett is like this legendary status, and he
Yeah.
probably got to it pretty quickly. Um,
Well, it's because everybody was scared of his name
yeah.
because they were scared of the Fett. They were scared of Django. So
So like what I don't know, just like what's going on in Fennec's mind that she trusts him and thinks that he's capable, and what does she actually what is her angle for crossing him, and what does she think of herself? I don't know, we're not getting any of that.
no, and if we're gonna do a backstabbing story, I'd like to see it in like I'd like to see it start to happen with her so that I can see what her motivation is. Like that, I think that's what you're saying is like
Hmm.
I want to know why because we don't know anything about her really. Like in everything we've ever seen her in, we don't really know her motivation for anything. We don't know like all we've ever seen her do is fight people and be really darn good at it. So I want to know
Yeah,
why, if we do get a stab in the back, I want to know why. Like, what's the motivation for this? Why does she feel like this has to be done? Why did she
and like
ever fight with him in the first place?
and even though Ming-Na Wen is an established uh you know actress who can work with fight choreography and can do physical stunts, if you're gonna use her in this way, just cast a stunt woman.
Yeah.
If you're gonna cast an actress who does all kinds of acting, like give her something to work with.
Hmm.
But I understand this is an episode it's sort of another riff on Seven Samurai, um, with it just focusing on training
Hmm.
a tribe of
Yeah.
people to like go do this one thing, and let's talk about this episode for what it actually is. It's
Yeah.
it's a heist. It's a train heist. And it's interesting that we're starting to see train heists become their own motif in Star Wars in the same way that like a dogfight is. Like we're
Yeah.
seeing it at different points in different stories. I think
Was
we saw it in
Solo the
Clone
first big
Wars.
one?
That's the best one in my opinion. But I'm
I
pretty sure it
love that
happened
was
in
good.
Clone Wars.
Yeah.
It might have happened in Rebels, but like
Hmm.
um if you're gonna borrow action styles from Star Wars, if you're gonna sort of reuse that sort of stuff, I think the train heist is one of the more fresh ones you can do,
Yeah.
even if it's not an entirely new sort of thing. Um, it's not overdone. It's not like a speeder chase, or I mean, at this point, hallway fights.
Yeah.
We've seen almost every episode of these Disney Plus shows.
That's a
Um,
Marvel thing though. That's just like, but also I guess it bled over into Mando a little bit.
yeah. So I like this train heist, and I love the different levels of skill. You got Boba Fett, who is he's a lot slower than the one warrior Tusken
Yeah.
warrior. You got a few Tusken Raiders who are very clumsy and end up dying.
Well, okay, and that's another point that I have is they're trying to make us really care about these Tuskens, and I think they're really succeeding because every time one of those Tuskens died in like during that fight, I was like, oh man, like I felt it. And I was like, I never thought that I would never in my Star Wars career did I think I would feel the death of a Tusken and be like sad about it just because of the way they've always been portrayed. But now, like, it was legitimately sad. Like they've built such a good what I would say characters. They've built such good characters for these Tuskens that now we like genuinely care for them.
I do think, however, it's kind of in a relative to what we've seen before
Yeah, that's true.
way because we're not getting names
Hmm.
and we're getting just like silhouettes, like sort of rough ideas of the differences in their appearances. Um, but and by the way, I on our podcast Twitter account, I retweeted a thread by Darth Sienna that I found that touches on um hold on touches on her specific perspective as an indigenous person on that episode or the first two chapters actually.
Hmm.
It doesn't mean it can be boiled down to everyone of indigenous descent, but like she touches upon some of that with how they're differentiated, um, especially the tribe aspect of like showing that there's not one Tuscan look. This
Yeah.
tribe specifically, we haven't seen in any other Star Wars stories. Um, I want to
Well, even in Mando, I think
tweet
all
just
the
a link out.
Tuskens looked the same, like that what we were used to from A New Hope and Phantom Menace, if
And
I'm not mistaken.
another thing she touches upon is the language. It's not subtitled, so it allows for characters to like manipulate and impress upon what's being communicated,
Hmm.
and like and hold on.
Are you looking up the Twitter feed?
Yeah, I don't want to misrepresent the thread.
Oh, I got you. I got you. I can pull it up if you'd like.
Yeah, I think basically the main critique is that um like Tuskens are seen as um not just superficial analogs to Native Americans as they were in the original trilogy and prequels, but like even in these stories, like there's meta text, there's the way it's represented. It echoes how it has shades of good and bad representation of
Hmm.
Native Americans in film. Um, I think I'm stumbling through like trying to speak on my own and also recite things from the thread, but basically like I think part of the differentiation of the characters could be improved upon. I would just love to know their names
Hmm.
and be a little more clear on what's being said. Um, and I don't know. There's limitations, I guess, um, with it still being just like sort of this weird sci-fi thing. That's why they grunt instead of language because it was initially just like I just do. I'm George Lucas. Here's just do a way of grunting.
Yeah.
Um, but anyway, if you want to hear a voice from an indigenous person, we retweeted that thread, and with below that thread is plenty of other perspectives that you can see.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, let's
And
talk.
do you have anything?
Oh, I was just gonna jump to kind of like the after of the heist.
The
Um,
credits.
yeah, the credits. So there's a lot of cool names in there. No. So after the heist, we see that the what I can only suspect or guess is the chief Tusken of this specific tribe. Um, tells Boba that he has a gift for him, and Christian and I are gonna rewatch this scene as we talk about it, just because we can. Um, but the gift ends up being a lizard, which jumps into Boba's nose, and he has this really trippy dream sequence, including more uh more things from more I can't think of the word scenes. God Lord, more scenes from Attack of the Clones of Boba Fett holding his dad's helmet. So, um, yeah, it starts out like a really bad LSD trip, and then by the end of it, he has this random branch from a tree. But it doesn't he also see his dad in the tree, or is he only he's seeing himself in the armor?
I'm not sure. I
No.
um I struggled with parsing out how much of this is his vision and how much of it is his actual journey. Because
Hmm.
at the end of it, we do see that he did walk into the middle of nowhere. Um,
He did get a branch, so the tree must have been real.
yeah, and like there's a tree there, there's ocean, because it's going back and forth between the desert and Camino, and
Yeah,
I love that contrast. I love that that's like explicitly being shown, even if it's really vague. That we're seeing like difference between his current environment and where he grew up.
yeah.
And I love that they're exploring that through abstract imagery. And my initial thought was that the tree wasn't there, that the tree was sort of a symbol, and then, but like he just picked a branch off the ground because we don't see trees in Tatooine, we see driftwood.
That's true. I didn't think about that.
So I thought the tree was more of a symbol.
Yeah.
Um,
I've also heard a lot of rumors that we may be going back to Camino at some point in this season, mainly due to the fact that the uh, the model of Tatooine that we see in the first episode is a brand new model, and I don't think they would model Tatooine or model Camino, because I think from what I've seen, it's a practical model that they have recorded, and you wouldn't really do that unless you were going to use it for more than like a 5 second cutaway um, in an
for
episode.
Tatooine.
I'm not Tattoo for Camino. Sorry, Camino. My bad. So
Oh, I
I
see
don't
what
know.
you mean.
Yeah.
So
So there's
they had to readapt Camino for the volume.
yes,
So yeah, they weren't gonna put a little shot of it in a vision if
and
they
then
weren't
not do
pursuing
it
it.
again. So there's a lot of rumors that they may go back to Camino within this, because there's that one scene where Boba's running to the window. That's definitely a reshoot. Like that was not definitely not in
Couldn't
it.
couldn't
It
they
doesn't seem
also
like a
though
deleted
like
scene.
couldn't they also easily have just like reused a Bad Batch or Clone Wars model if they wanted to, and then just reshot the running shot of young Boba
Maybe
if it
they.
was
I mean,
just
they.
that episode?
Well, they'd still have to do a lot of work to make it not look like a cartoon,
Yeah,
which would basically
but to
mean redoing the whole thing anyway.
adding more elements, but like the basic structure you could keep. But if
Hmm.
they're gonna explore it for an entire episode almost and do like more hallway scenes,
Yeah,
then like yeah, create an entire new model.
yeah. So we'll see. I don't really have an opinion right now whether I'd want to go back to. I don't know. I mean, we still have ep- more hours of show before, so maybe Camino will be cool.
And I love predicting this sort of thing, but let's do take quite a bit of time to appreciate this scene because I think it's
Yeah,
uh very impressive that with even within the like the stylistic things that I don't like about the show, the fact that they went there, I definitely appreciate.
it also looks really good for a TV budget, even if it is a Disney TV budget. Like
Yeah,
which is much bigger than normal TV budgets, but still, like it looks like fantastic and it's great. It's getting flashbacks to his original armor, the full on jumpsuit style, um, and everything. Like it's very cool and it's very visually appealing. Um, and I don't know about you, I was very confused at why he was tripping on like something, like why they were doing it to him. I thought they were trying to get him away at first. And I was like, that doesn't make any sense. But the real reason being he was getting a stick so that he could then forge it into his own Baki stick, which is I guess the weapon of the Tuscans that they carry around and they are trained to use. Which then I guess signifies that all the Tuscans have to go through this, maybe
Maybe.
once they get to a certain point.
I don't know. I want to keep dwelling on what it means for him though, because like I don't know. I like obviously they're gonna splice in different eras of his life, um, because he's really been put through the ringer. Uh, and this is probably I don't know if it's because this is his first like story
Hmm.
devoted to this much of him, or if it like legitimately is like this is the part of his life where he's like reflecting on things. I think that's
Yeah.
part of it. Is that like he's becoming more introspective just as a person, not just because we're finally seeing it. And yeah, going searching for the tree is just a cool visual we've never seen in Tatooine. Like
Yeah.
the wistful, oh look at the suns, there's something out there, but never like I'm stuck on this planet. I'm meant to be on this planet, and I'm looking for this thing that's only here. It's a very specific location on a
We
desert
also
landscape.
get we also get another becoming my father scene, kind of like Luke in
Yes.
Luke on Dagobah. We get a really cool shot of young Boba looking into Jango's helmet with Tamura Morrison's face, present Boba, like behind it, looking like it's in the helmet, and it's like he is becoming Jango Fett, and it's like that's
Wait, can
crazy.
you pull that up again?
Yeah.
Was it a crossfade or was it
It
real
was a
life?
mix. Like there was it was I think it was originally a crossfade, or originally it was just him like looking at it with Tamara Morrison in the background, but then I think it became a crossfade. So here it is. Yeah, so it's in the background. It's not a crossfade at all. It stays on it goes to Camino after that. So yeah, that's just another really cool shot.
Oh, I
Dang.
see. I see. It's a match cut. It's a sort of it crossfades a bit, but it's
Yeah.
like but in terms of like relation between one shot and another, it's a match cut from
Yeah.
Boba's face, Boba's helmet inside the Sarlacc, in the pit of the stomach, straight to Django's helmet being held by him.
Mhm.
And obviously, also there's he's tangled in the branches of the tree and he's tangled in the intestines. Um,
Yeah.
just sort of um, relating images from all these different points of his life. So yeah, I love that it's just Star Wars is known for just reusing a lot of imagery, but in different contexts, and like it's maybe compared to other stories or series of things, it could be considered like cannibalistic, the way it just sort of
Mhm.
regurgitates themes, and I wouldn't fault you for thinking that. That being said, given how low the bar for us for the show was, the idea that they're doing something abstract like this and doing Boba's version of going into the cave at Dagobah,
Yeah.
it's one of the cooler things in a kind of cool show, and I
Mhm.
appreciate that it did that.
Yeah. I like it a lot. Um, yeah, it's like I said, it's so visually appealing. It's so good to watch, and it's also like a good glimpse into Boba's mindset of like he sees himself becoming his father, whether he likes that or not. Because it kind of seems like he's trying to not be his father being a feared bounty hunter, and now it kind of seems like he's trying to reject all rumors of him being a bounty hunter. Um, although he also says
I mean, he's still trying to run a crime organization.
I get that, and he's also still saying he still continuously says I'm just a simple man trying to make my way through the universe like my father before me, like that's he said that multiple times. So who knows whether he wants to be his father or not, but he can see that he is becoming him, not only because he is, a literal clone of his father, but also because his lifestyle choosings. Um, yeah,
I think yeah, there's definitely a markedly difference between I intend to rule with respect as opposed to Django's I'm just a simple man making my way through the galaxy. And the way Django talks to Obi-Wan is so dismissive.
yeah,
And like I mean now you can even now looking back on Attack of the Clones, you can read that as sort of a prelude to this show. You could be thinking about what Boba becomes while you're watching him as a kid. So
hmm
as a kid, he's picking up on all the things that his dad's doing. He's trying to emulate him. But yeah, you definitely made a good point of saying that like he's trying to correct some of the wrong things about his father because Django at least didn't like maybe it's because of the particular hatred of the Jedi, but Django didn't really make a point of respecting Obi-Wan.
yeah, exactly. Um, yeah, like I said, he's that's all I mean, that's all I have about that. But like the rest of the episode is him making his Baki stick. I think that's what it's called. I really hope it is. I said that in the past like 2 episodes. I think that's what it's called. Um, so and he's like getting taught how to make it. He's not just like
I
go
thought
do
it
it
was
yourself.
Gaffy Stick.
It is a gaffy stick. That's what it is. You're right. God, I'm
It's
stupid.
you have Gaffy Stick, and you have Bocce Ball,
Yeah,
which
which
like
is fun.
the Tuscans play Bocce Ball at their cookouts and they're like mixers,
Yeah.
and they do Gaffy Sticks for like warfare.
hmm
Two different occasions.
Yeah. It's a really cool scene of the Tuscan like doing it, like making the gaffy stick, but then also showing Bubba how to do it. Like this is how you do this. This is how you do this. And I think this episode is just such a good look into their custom. Um, this final 10 minutes of the episode. The um giving them the lizard, having to find your gaffy stick branch, and then making it yourself. That's such a good look into like their custom for their warriors that like we've never gotten before. Because in our view of them in the past, they are just these warrior people who will fight anybody. They have no customs other than to be a nuisance. But now like we see they are a civilization. They have these kind of things in place that they've done for who knows how long, longer than anybody else has ever been on Tatooine.
It's it's weird how like this is only the third like unit of a show in the Disney Plus Star Wars era, and we rag on it for using the same elements over and over. That being said, there's it's you could sort of work together with all these different shows. And I think they're going to continue to do this, but like by like seeing the things that they use repeatedly, like the armory scenes from The Mandalorian,
hmm
where he's I mean that was heavily used in Mandalorian season 1, where pounding away at the Beskar, him flashing back to his childhood. I didn't even think about tying that back to Boba Fett,
Yeah.
using those like the way those flashbacks are used.
hmm
And then we have, but also especially like making the armor and the weapons, and like seeing that through these characters. I wouldn't be surprised if they did that with Ahsoka and her lightsabers. It seems they're like okay. I've ragged on them for like not for rushing into things for sure, and just sort of going into it, going for the quick, satisfying thing rather than the
Yeah.
actually good story. But I'll give them credit that like they're communicating things about characters through the forging of their knightly armor, their weapons, and it's really putting a lot of emphasis on those visuals and how we think about those characters, and I think that's pretty interesting.
I like it. Yeah. Do you have anything else to say about the episode before we give our final takes?
I think um I think we've operated within this realm quite a bit. I think maybe it's because it's been like a little rusty. Haven't done a lot of episodes recently,
Yeah.
but like the whole thing of like, yeah, not for me. I don't think it's that great, but I can still give credit where credit's due and like the things that are interesting, and also trying to weed away my expectations and like see the story for what it is. Um, I think I'm getting a hang for like what to actually adjust and
Hmm.
how I view this stuff. Um, I don't think it would change much about how I think about season or episode one,
So
but
my question was, do you think that watching this episode puts episode one into a better frame of reference that you enjoy? Do you enjoy episode one anymore after watching this episode?
no, because I think season one or episode one, obviously I had to get over the hump of like this is disappointing compared to my even low expectations, but I also
Yeah.
think episode one is just a bad first episode of a show.
Hmm.
Whereas I think this is a good second episode of the show. Well, I don't know. Most first episodes of a show, like the last scene or last moments of the first episode is like, things are about to change. That doesn't happen with the show.
No.
And so like this so I couldn't really say it's a good second episode because it's not a typical second episode dealing with the ramifications of the first,
Hmm.
but it's a good episode, I
It
think.
is a good episode, yes. I would
It
agree. I
doesn't
don't.
change anything about episode one.
No, I don't think episode. As much as I really wanted this episode to make episode one better, it doesn't excuse for the flashbacks not really doing a whole lot anyway. Like, there's not a whole lot happening. Like, nothing really happens. Like emotionally for the character, it's like there's a lot of stuff happening, but none of it's like emotionally investful, if that's a word. You know what I'm saying? So like, I don't think I like the first episode anymore, but this episode much better comparatively speaking, and is just a generally good episode of Star Wars. Um, and I think it's good. So yeah, I hope that the episodes can stay this good. And I feel so bad that because I saw that Robert Rodriguez did not direct this episode, and I was like, oh man, I was
Yeah,
like,
I had figured that he directed the whole show,
I
like
did
like
too,
how
but
it's
I
for
got
Obi
so,
Wan.
but I got sad because I was like, oh man, please don't tell me that every episode is gonna be good except for the one that Robert Rodriguez does, because that would make me really upset. And it would make it'd make the people who don't care about the actual directors themselves be like, Robert Rodriguez sucks. Don't let him do any more Star Wars projects. And I would be upset with that. Because didn't he do like the best of the Mando episodes for the most part? He
He
did
only
Prisoner,
did
right?
no, that
No, that
was
was
Rick Famuyiwa.
yeah.
Which where is he?
Yeah.
I
Where's
haven't.
he? Why has he not been doing any of these shows?
Oh my gosh, I don't think he came back for season two.
He didn't.
I I don't want to see. This is the thing. I don't want to live in a world where Star Wars is choosing to greenlight things directed by Peyton Reed and not Rick Famuyiwa.
Yeah,
It's like it doesn't make any sense. But yeah, I heard that Filoni's coming to direct episode seven. I think the last episode of the Book of Boba Fett,
that's cool.
which I saw someone react to that as like, oh, well, we know Ahsoka's gonna be in it.
Because anything he's in. When did Mando season 2 was 2021, right? Or was it 2020?
Season what?
Season 1 of or season 2 of Mandalorian. Hold up. Yeah, okay. He did the Believer in season 2. So Rick Famuyiwa did
Oh yeah, and
he
that was
did
the
the
Highlander.
Believer.
Yeah,
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
but yeah, Rodriguez only did the Abduction.
Since then, he literally has only done one episode of a TV series. And then is apparently he's filming a documentary currently.
About what?
It says Untitled Rick Famuyiwa Project documentary
I'm down.
filming. And then Black Hole, Uptown Saturday Night, Son of Shaolin, Children of Blood and Bone, and Past Midnight are all announced shows that he or movies that he will be doing. So it doesn't look like he's coming back to Star Wars anytime soon. I hate to tell you, he's got 5
Yeah,
movies and a documentary that he's currently filming.
Children
So
of Blood and Bone sounds familiar. Is that like a novel adaptation?
I have no idea. I will look it up and I'll let you know off air because everyone doesn't care and is ready probably for us to wrap up the episode.
Oh yeah.
Yep,
It's
Tommy Adeyemi. I don't know. I can't pronounce names. It's a novel. Yep.
that's cool. I think I'm not sure if Disney is producing it. I mean,
Um, Producers listed as I don't know. Well, I'm gonna do the outro. Thank you for listening to this episode of the Last Star Wars podcast. If you enjoyed it and you want to go find us on our social medias, you can find us on Instagram and Twitter at Last Star Wars Pod, or you can find us on YouTube and Facebook at the Last Star Wars podcast.
it's Lucasfilm. Lucasfilm is producing it.
All right, we have to watch it now. We have to watch it. All right. And lastly, if you want to email us anything, let us know what you think about Book of Boba Fett. Let us know what you want us to do next while we wait for Mando season 3 and also Kenobi and also all the other bombardment of media that we're about to get. You should email us at laststarwarspod@gmail.com. That is all from us. Thank you for listening to this episode of the Book of Boba Fett, and we'll see you next week for
It's
episode.
called Book of. It's called. It's called Boba Takeover.
Okay, thank you for joining us for this episode of Boba. I don't do the intro for the show, okay? Thank you for joining us for this episode of Boba Takeover. We'll see you next week for episode 3.